really wanting to tell stories that feel universal but are textured with a specific sort of South Asian cultural feel and that feel like they could only come from us.
Hi all, it's Silas Ram, AsianCultureVulture.com. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me. Be talking about the short film, Magid Zafar. This is out for a Bafta now. It won a British Independent Film Award late last year. We're going to be talking to the writers, Sufiyaan Salam and Louis Hindman. Louis Hindman directed. Let's go and find out more. Welcome to AsianCultureVulture.com. How are you?
Great, yeah, thanks
really
for having
good.
us.
Okay. I have to ask you, how does it feel to be nominated for a BAFTA? You won a British Independent Film Award. What's it like as young filmmakers just starting out? It's your first short film.
It's amazing, and it's really it's been great even just since we premiered it at LFF. The like public reception, both in terms of like audiences and like awards, it's everything you can hope for with a short.
The interplay of the language, again, I found that really engaging, realistic.
The way they're talking, where they're blending modern slang, Urdu, Punjabi, and so on. It is just the English language. The English language is constantly evolving and changing. It's a British way of speaking. It's one type. So it's for us, it's exactly what the film's hoping to achieve. This is a way of being entirely British. Yeah, and it was cool to see it realized on screen.
So, Sufiyaan, you wrote this story. Where was the inspiration? Where did it come from?
Well, we wrote the script together. We were just constantly talking about the kind of story we wanted to see with, these specific sort of South Asian settings and characters. We basically had the character of Magid in our heads for a while, and we're just trying to find the right story, the right setting for him.
Was it the setting that really helped that process, putting Magid in a Pakistani takeaway?
Yeah, for sure. We just realized, even though we'd never really seen a Pakistani takeaway like that be presented in a way that felt very cinematic, it just inherently is. And it's a location that can be full of high energy, a lot of cultural texture. You can have like the Pakistan flag, you can have Pakistani music and characters and clothing and so on. There's a Pakistani cricket t-shirt hanging up on the wall. So you can have all this stuff and be very maximalist about it, whilst also allowing the kind of high stress environment to change how the character's behaving and sort of add to this pressure cooker that he's emotionally in as well.
And it was a pivotal point in moving the script along, because actually the narrative arc existed for a while before we had a setting, and we were basically trying to find a setting to put this in. But we had our beginning and end, we had the two characters, and as soon as we had the idea to put it in a takeaway, we could get started on the script.
You spent time in Pakistani, in this kind of restaurants before, so you're very familiar with the scene. That really helped you put the thing together on paper, at least.
It was a mix of some first-hand experience and also research. So like I'd worked in like takeaway, which wasn't a Pakistani or restaurant, although like a lot of the staff were British Asian. So a lot of just the masculine camaraderie or like toxicity also like comes from that. It was that plus just a lot of like research too, of like very detailed like behind the scenes stuff on YouTube of how kitchens worked, then mixed with just like visual inspirations of, okay, what happens if this world is seen through the eyes of like Wong Kar-wai? And so it's kind of a mix of a few different approaches to bring it to life.
I grew up in a town called Blackburn, which has, I think at the time I was growing up, had the highest density of just takeaways per person in general. But again, it's a huge South Asian population. So I grew up surrounded by Pakistani, Indian takeaways. I never worked in one, but I was certainly in them a lot. This sort of high energy and the kind of flames bursting up and the loud waiters shouting at each other and so on. This was at the forefront of our minds as we were trying to make our own.
Was it set in a real takeaway, or how? I mean, again, it looked very realistic and it had a certain kind of naturalism to it.
That's the best thing we could hear, because it's a set build. We found like a real place, but it wasn't a Pakistani takeaway. It was just like the sort of carcass of a location. And then we built our set onto it. And what that allowed is to really kind of build my dream idea of like what a British Pakistani takeaway should look like.
What I really like about the film is the tone, the way it changes and really shifts, and you're not prepared for it really.
The shift in tone came from the process of making it. The final scene was always going to be sparser and it was going to be more simple, but the way it was originally written was more kind of 3-act structure, and the progression to the 2-act kind of fast to slow There were sort of 2 points of that. So it initially happened when I was in the rehearsal with the actors, and I just let them play it naturally without giving them like a time limit or saying how long even the build up to the final moment had to be. And they presented naturally, like with the reality of the situation, the rhythm that you see in the final film, that carried its way through shooting. And then the final stage was in the edit. We just committed to that because there's always every option in the edit that you almost betray what the actors were doing and try to fit it back into the script. But credit to my editor, Joseph Taylor, like really believed in protecting what the actors did.
Can you talk about how difficult or easy it was to cast Magid and Zafar?
They're all really actors that I loved in theatre that I hadn't seen much on screen with, apart from Kulvinder Ghir, who is, of course, from Goodness Gracious Me and is a legend in his own right. But especially with the other three, Ravin, Gurjeet, and Eben, were all like great UK theatre actors that I'd seen do like amazing stuff on stage and hadn't seen them been able to have roles to do that on screen. And a big part of the excitement for me was being able to bring them onto screen and show everyone what they're capable of.
Absolutely. And would you guys like to make a feature from this, or you're working on something quite different? Are you doing more short films? Where are you right now in terms of your filmmaking?
Yeah, we're working on a feature together at the moment, which is not necessarily a feature-length version of the short film, but certainly I think is we're taking stuff we've learned from the short film and what we think worked really well about the film, telling a whole new story, but expanding on that. And again, really wanting to tell stories that feel universal, but are textured with a specific sort of South Asian cultural feel and that feel like they could only come from us.
Can you talk a little bit about what the biggest challenge was?
Specifically on a creative level, it was the edit process. As you can maybe feel from the finished film, it's like a really edit-driven film, both in terms of like picture, sound, and music. And very early on, we just realized, both myself and my editor, that we had to do a really fine cut from the beginning. So we didn't do any rough cuts or assemblies and instead built it with the sound design and music from the get-go. And we wouldn't move past a section until it felt final. Because the film's all about like cumulative rhythm, we really needed to know where we were coming from to move forward. So I would say the whole edit process or post-production process was the most challenging, but also like the most fun because of that, because it's really where the film was made and it's also definitely where the most time was spent making it. So it's a lot of credit goes to like my editor Joseph Taylor and our sound design team.
Yes, talk about the music because I think that really again adds so much to the story.
I think even during writing, we were always talking about tracks and have like shared music tastes. Both like we'd be talking about contemporary stuff like Sweatshop Boys, but also I remember when you first wrote in the Nusrat Biwafa track. So the starting point was like writing some of that stuff into the script, and then with the edit, that just went even further, and we knew that would have to become a central part to how the rhythm of the film was dictated. I even used it in rehearsal. Actually, I had a lot of the tracks early, so we rehearsed a lot of the first half of the film to music, so the actors knew the energy they'd be either playing with or like playing against.
Thank you so much for your time.
Great.
Good luck, and keep in touch.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Take care. Good luck.
I'm in search. Follow me, please.